All Things Good podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the All Things Good podcast. I'm your coach and your host, Giovanna Cirillo. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast that helps you with mental health, self development, and your overall wellness, helping you become the greatest version of yourself. Today, we're going to be talking to Thayne Martin. Thayne Martin is a transformational speaker, podcast host, and creator of Equation of Life and Abundant Happiness. Now, that is a framework focused on emotional intelligence, gratitude, and personal transformation. After building successful careers across industries from luxury design and real estate to tech and sales, Thayne faced a deeply personal awakening while navigating complex mental health challenges and trauma. Through profound inner work, vulnerability, and a near death experience, he transformed his life and now helps individuals and organizations break through limiting beliefs, heal emotionally, and create healthier cultures. Today, Thayne blends neuroscience, gratitude, and powerful storytelling to inspire people to reconnect with their truth, live with greater awareness, purpose, and happiness. Help me by welcoming Thayne Martin. Welcome, Thane. How are you today?
You know what? I am fabulous. Couldn't pick a better day. It's amazing here in Arizona.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for coming on. I read your bio and I was just like, oh my God, this man has been through so much. I need to have him on here and kind of like, share your story.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for the willingness. So tell us about the beginning of your journey. You stated that you were diagnosed with multiple personality. You had complex PTSD.
Hmm.
Tell us about that. At what age were you diagnosed? Can we start there?
So, yeah, so interesting. I wasn't diagnosed with DID, complex PTSD, bipolar 1, and severe ADHD until late in life. I was
Okay.
actually in my 50s when I
Okay.
was diagnosed with that. So I had them throughout my entire life. I knew I was different. I
Mm-hmm.
knew there was many things about my life that didn't make sense to most people, but it's all I knew. So I didn't know any better. But I will also say that most of my life was a lot of destruction, like a lot of addiction, a lot of personal destruction, crap choices.
Right.
But the real key is, where did it come from?
Right.
Where
Right.
did this madness come from? Because I wasn't born that way. So for me, my madness came from my childhood. So I was born into a beautiful family of a wonderful mother, wonderful father, older brother, younger sister. We were members of the Mormon faith. So I was raised in a very conservative offshoot of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
and had a magical childhood up until about age 4.5, 5. And I started being groomed by a little boy in the neighborhood who was also being abused. I kind of know that now, that that's the only reason why he would behave that way. But I wasn't abused by adults initially. It was him, the little
Oh,
boy.
wow.
And it's weird how it happens. I didn't like it. I actually did something about it, and sadly the response was not the right response.
Mm-hmm.
That was a mistake that was made in my upbringing, without placing blame on my parents, because I won't do that. My parents are amazing people.
Right.
But something happened, and I realized from that day forward that I could never speak about what was happening.
Mm.
So it I mm, I'm just gonna call it my date of change, July 4th, 1976. And all I did was, I was raising money for a fundraiser to rent an instrument in band. And so we were selling these little honey bear bottles with gourmet honey as a
Okay.
fundraiser. So I had sold a bottle of honey to a neighbor, July 4th, 1976, bicentennial, huge block party. The streets closed off, root beer bicycles everywhere. My brother broke a piñata. I grabbed my share of the candy and I ran home about 5 doors down from where we were having the block party. to hide
Mm-hmm.
my candy. And then I realized at that time when I came out the door that the neighbor that had bought the honey had gotten home and I needed to collect the money. So my family was all 5 houses north of me having a grand old time with barbecues and root beer and hot dog and the kids. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna get this money while I'm here. So I walked across the street and I knocked on the door. His wife was not home. Um, he invited me into the home because he said, I've got the money in the back room, follow me. And I had raked his leaves before. My
Mm-hmm.
mom used to send my brother and I out and to do yard work for neighbors just to wear us out. And so I wasn't afraid of him, but he took me into the back room and he brutally assaulted me.
Wow.
And and the way that I was assaulted and the things that were said, he owned me from that day forward
Wow.
because he was using my 5-year-old sister. So I was 8 years old when that happened. And he was using my 5-year-old sister as leverage to keep me silent. And it
Mm.
was, if you say anything, um, then we'll do this to your sister. And then you got to understand that our adults are really good at manipulating children and we don't have long-term decision making, and that actually doesn't develop in us until our early to mid 20s. So, as a child, you're not in any position to be
Mm-hmm.
making life decisions like this. So, and pedophiles know that. And so they fill your head. Basically, they brainwash you into believing all kinds of things that aren't true. So, for example, I believed ultimately that this was my fault, that it
Right.
was my fault that I was abused. And it was my fault that because it was my fault, that if I told anybody, I would be removed from my family. And
Mm.
that thought right there scared the hell out of me because I love my parents and I love my family and I didn't want to be without my family. So they used that right now. Notice the word they. So what ultimately happened was this. The man that lived across the street from me was in cahoots with a man that lived behind me off of an alley. Okay. And
Okay.
the two of them basically ran a pedophile ring in my neighborhood. And it was
No.
run, yep, out of the Mormon church that I was a member of. So
How did I know?
the man that lived behind me was the church janitor. So he had the key. He knew when the building was occupied. He knew where it was empty. He knew what he could lock. He knew where he could hide what he needed to hide. So over the course of 6 years, these men abused multiple boys, not just me.
Mm.
And they took our lives. They took everything from us. I know, sadly, 3 of my childhood friends committed suicide from what happened to us. My last one was my best childhood friend, died about 6 years ago. And then one of the boys got AIDS before there was
Mm.
anything for it. And it was literally when it just started happening. And he blamed it on something else. But the reality is, I know where it came from. And
Right.
so my whole life started out in trauma. And because of that trauma, one of the things that our brains do is they protect us. So DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, used to be called multiple personality syndrome. And sadly, it's a condition that only 1% of the population has. And it's very misunderstood and it's always misrepresented. So
Right.
every serial killer has DID in every horror movie. Okay. And that is so unfair to those of us that have had that disorder because do people with DID do bad things? Yes. Do people that don't have DID do bad things? Yes. So why do we have to single out the people with DID and put them as the serial killer in every movie? Okay?
Right.
It's not fair. And what it did though is it makes people with DID be silent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why I know, like, I should have got help, but I didn't get help because of the stigma attached to DID and all the mental health. Now, realize I didn't even know that I had that. I just knew that I was different. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is when you have DID, there's different kinds of systems. My system was not co-conscious. So what that meant is when I would switch from one personality to the next personality, I had no memory of who I was just prior to switching. So
Right.
it made my life crazy. And I thought everybody lived like that. And most
Mm.
people are like, how did you live this long without being diagnosed? Great question. I flew under the radar. I developed wicked coping skills. Like when I would switch, like I could be doing this podcast with you, Giovanna, and something might enter the field, something would trigger me, and then I would switch. And you might see me do like sometimes there's a little bit of a twitch involved in it, like an eye movement.
Hmm.
But then I would be talking to you and I wouldn't know who you were. So I would quickly change the conversation so
Right.
that I was in control of the conversation, not you. So I developed all these coping skills that allowed me to hide it. So I lived most of my life encumbered with severe mental health. That led to a path of addiction. For me, it was pills. I had a operation, shoulder work done in my 30s, and I was given a very powerful painkiller. And that was the first night in my life I slept and didn't have nightmares, and thus began an addiction. So I became a
Okay.
pill popper literally from that one prescription. I know people say oxy is not dangerous. I'm here to tell you I became addicted after one pill.
Right.
And
Okay,
that led
so
me down that path, man. Led me
let's
down the
hold on
path.
because you stated so much, and I'm just like,
Okay.
wait, hold on, wait, let me
Okay.
catch up here.
Okay.
Okay, so 8-year-old boy, just innocent child, and you come across a pedophile. First, it was done by another young boy within the
Yes.
Mormon church, which I had a feeling that was just something that came to me that it started with the Mormon church. You mentioned a lot of things. You mentioned so much. You mentioned that you didn't place the blame on your parents. A lot of people tend to blame their parents. And I can't say that sometimes parents don't play a role, but I love the fact that you took the accountability and stated, my parents were perfect. There was nothing that they could have done. You were just being a kid,
No.
and the
Yeah.
world was being the world, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
And I
so I
couldn't.
do love that.
Yeah, I don't hold anything against my mother and father because I own the fact that I did not tell them. That was my
Mm,
choice, but I was scared and manipulated into that choice, you see.
right.
And here's the other thing. I spent my whole life what ifing myself. What if I would have told somebody? What if I would have told my mom? What if I would have told my dad? Well, I will tell you this, when my dad learned about what happened to my mother or to me, it was again late in life. And I asked my dad, Dad, what would you have done? And my dad said I would have killed him. And
Exactly.
and then I would have had a father in prison and
Hmm.
a family without a dad. So did I make the right decision as a child? I made the only decision that I could make with an immature mind. And guess what?
Right.
It was the best decision. It
I
is what
agree.
it is. You know what I mean? That's why I don't hold any malice at all in my heart to my parents. And when my parents found out what happened to me, they were the most supportive, loving, kind people you could ever ask for. Like I'm truly blessed to have
And
my
I'm
family.
sure that they are completely proud of you. I like the
They
fact that
are.
you stated that if you could do anything differently, you wouldn't. And I
I
think
wouldn't.
that's very important because a lot of the times we live in regret, right? None of our past is perfect, whether it was trauma through what we've done or what someone's done to us, whether it was poverty, whether it was lack, there's always something, right? And
Hmm.
a lot of us always think if we could just do things differently. And it's crazy because just the other day, someone asked me this question, if you could do things differently, would you? And I said, no. I said, honestly, I wouldn't because I would not be this person who I am today. And I love the
Exactly.
person that I am. I can
Amen.
honestly say that.
Amen. And that's exactly what it's about. When you shed the victim story and you let go of the path and you actually see the beautiful life
Right.
that you couldn't see. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was always a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a near-death experience, and I'm sure you'll want to talk about that,
Yes.
that completely changed everything for me. Like I died. Okay. And that right there will set you on a different path. And it
Mm-hmm.
set me on a different path, completely
Right.
different path.
Okay, so now you said you went into taking pills and you became addicted.
Yeah,
Tell us about that journey and then lead us into how you almost died, your near-death experience and what that
sure.
did for you.
Sure. So I have three little girls. I have a degree in finance and real estate, and I found myself in the sales community. I've been very entrepreneurial my whole career, but I'm very good with people and very good at sales. And so I just gravitated towards that in my 30s, found myself making a lot of money, had an amazing life, lived in a big home, on the board of directors of a bank. Like things were great, right?
Hmm.
But then the addiction started with the pills because I started having nightmares and about that time I got the pills and the pills would allow me to sleep at night. So I would take, an oxy contin and then go to sleep and I would sleep all night long and then wake up. So I didn't have nightmares when I was medicated. So after the shoulder surgery, then it was always something else so that I could get that prescription because it was the only way I could sleep. Well, that one prescription led to an addiction, which led to more things and poor choices.
Right.
So then you compound that with a person who has DID and multiple personalities, who then I really started splitting the worst in my 30s because I was working in a company with a very stressful job, very stressful situation. And it was a really challenging time in my life. And the guy that I worked for bribed a public official, so it
Hmm.
was in the papers and the company was everywhere and it was just incredibly stressful. And I know that was also one of the reasons why I literally started splitting again. Okay, because
Mm.
once the brain splits, as it split as a child, you have to understand where it comes from. It's a coping mechanism. Think
Right.
of it
Yeah,
this
let's talk
way.
about that because I was
Yeah,
like, hold on, I skipped the question that I wanted to ask, which was,
yeah,
what is the idea? I've learned, I actually have a book on it.
yeah. Okay.
And can you explain to our listeners what it
Yeah,
is, talk about the alters and
yeah,
what that looks
sure.
like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so DID happens because if you think of it, here I am a little child, I'm being abused and I can't tell anybody. But then I go home and I can't act as if any of this has happened. My secret
Hmm.
cannot get out. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister, the neighbors, nobody can know that this is happening. So imagine then going to school after you were just abused. And now I have to go act as if I'm okay when I'm not. So it starts out as acting, but it becomes a coping mechanism that actually turns into a personality. So most DID, which there's only 1% of the population that gets this disorder. 90%, 95% of those cases come from trauma in childhood. So it's typically trauma and it's usually repetitive. And that's why the multiple personalities developed. So in me, my system was not co-conscious, so we did not know of the others. And they were of different ages and also different orientations.
Hmm.
So I was married to an amazing woman. I'm still married to this amazing woman, and she's the love of my life and my angel and my everything. And I don't want to say I worship her, but I do. I'm so thankful for the love that this woman has had for me because you can imagine how challenging it would be to be married to a man with children that also identifies with 10 personalities, of which three of them are gay.
Hmm.
Okay. So now, how do I stay in a relationship with a woman with a family when some of my alters are gay and
Right.
they want to be with men,
Hmm.
and they want to date men, but yet I have to go home when I switch and be a straight man married to a woman. Okay.
Right.
So you can imagine the hell that that put on my marriage, the hell that it put in my family, and ultimately it led to a barrage of mental. So I had DID. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1, so big highs, big lows, um, complex PTSD with complete disassociation, and then lastly, severe ADHD. So I was a spaz and I just had a lot of issues. It all came from that trauma. So
Right.
when you have DID, you switch and it's based upon usually a trigger. Like it
Hmm.
could be a person, it could be a smell, something triggers the brain and says it's no longer safe to be this person. And then my brain would literally switch, a new identity would come out, and then I would go handle whatever needed to be handled. So
Right.
Sometimes I would switch and I would stay that person for a long time, days, weeks, months. Other times I would switch 3 times in the same hour. That was also possible. So, depending upon where stress was in my life, the more stress, the more switching. So
Understood.
ultimately, yeah, it led to a life of madness. And you can imagine like what that's like for a family. When my kids know I'm married to my wife, but then why does dad have all these friends that are gay? And how do we
Mm-hmm.
incorporate these gay friends into my life when I'm married to a woman and a family? I mean, it
Right.
just, I'm, I don't know how I made it, but I did. I did. I did by the grace of the thing upstairs, okay?
Yes.
And I did it by the grace of my wife, who never gave up on me, who believed me and loved me unconditionally through my shit. And then the last thing was therapist. My
Yeah.
first therapist that helped me because I had just committed, I had attempted suicide in my 30s, and that was the wake up call. So I was in my late 30s and a suicide attempt. That is when my wife found out what had happened to me and my family as well. So
Okay.
very late in life, before anybody knew that I had been abused by a group of pedophiles inside the Mormon church.
Wow. It's so insane because I think DID is often overlooked. I know that
Yeah,
not everyone needs to be diagnosed with it, but I think a lot of people deal with it unknowingly.
yeah. So
Because even forgive me, but even
yeah,
I was connected to a group of people who actually helped people who were abused or traumatized, who actually dealt with multiple personality disassociation.
yep.
And it is true what he is saying that one, like for a couple of months, they would be a completely different person. Like a
Mhm.
woman can manifest or, appear as a man, and suddenly this woman wants women because there is a man within this person, within
Yep.
this woman. It
It's
it's
strange. It's
confusing. These
peculiar.
alters
It
and
is.
personalities come about because of the trauma that took place.
That's
And it's like
correct.
he stated, it's
It's
a
all
coping
a coping
mechanism.
skill.
Yes.
Exactly.
To
It came
survive,
from the.
to
So, and that's why I can't get mad at my body or my brain.
hmm
My brain and my body did what it was designed to do, which was to protect me. And it did protect me because I'm still alive.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that whole experience. I'm grateful for that journey. And I'm grateful for everything. Like I said in the beginning, I'll do it all over again. Sign me up. Let's go. Because I
Right.
know who I am today. And that's what really, really motivates me because I have made some amazing discoveries. Amazing
Awesome.
discoveries. Because here's also the truth. I no longer have DID. I
I was
do
gonna
not
ask
have
that.
PTSD. I do not have ADHD, and I am no longer bipolar. I completely healed myself.
I love that.
And
I
I
love that.
did that with a crazy thing that I learned in my near-death experience.
Let's
It
talk about
came
that.
from
Let's talk about the near-death experience. What
yeah.
happened?
So, I had been diagnosed. I was working with a psychologist, trying to what they call integrate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you take different parts of self, complete personalities, not just parts of self, but complete personalities. And there's a way of integrating. We had started down that path. I had a great psychologist, and he was really helpful. But I was also still addicted to the pills for the most part. You know what I mean? Like I just and I'll share this. I know that the doctors had great intentions, but and they generally do, but I was over medicated
Mm.
most of my life. So at the worst of it, I had 7 pill boxes. So line
Wow.
up 7 pill boxes and take those pills. That's what I had. Pills to wake me up, pills to put me down, pills to manage my day. And I rattled when I walked. I'm not joking. That was my life. And it was madness. And that's what led to, the decision, to take my life because it wasn't working. But that decision that was thwarted, okay? that was what set me on this course path of correction, because that's when I finally got a therapist who worked with me for almost 4 months before we uncovered what had happened to me. Like my brain had completely
Mhm.
blocked it out.
Right.
I was doing EMDR for 3 months with nothing. And then one day I remembered red, white, and blue ribbons in my bicycle spokes. And that
Mm.
was the morning of July 4th, 1976, the very day that I was assaulted. So
Wow.
it was EMDR that found that. And then that therapist helped me unlock what happened to me.
Mm.
Right. So, so most of my life, I appreciate the therapists and psychologists and the doctors, but I will also say that many are often over medicated. And that's the solution from most physicians and mental health practitioners is to medicate you. And they had medicated me to the point that I could not heal at all. So I made a decision. I had been given, my doctor had put me on something. I was diagnosed as ADHD, and they gave me some medication that they should have never have given me at all.
Mm.
And we know that today because we did a gene report on me, and that drug was listed as a do not give this man this drug. So sadly
Wow.
enough, we have the technology today to know these things, but my doctor did not take the time to run the tests. So I was given something. I was swimming late at night. I was by myself, and I essentially had a seizure while I was swimming, and
Oh,
I
wow.
went under the water. Okay. I went under the water, and I lost my life that night. And when I woke up at the bottom of my swimming pool. Okay. I
Wow.
literally do not know. There's a period of time that's not in my memory. Someday I know I will recover it, but there's a period of time between when I started swimming and when I ended up at the bottom of the pool. All right. So what had happened was, and I want to back up just a second, okay, because that wasn't my first NDE. My first NDE happened as a child. All right.
Mm.
Happened as a child. I had been taken to a location. They would often take us off-site. This off-site location was an old garage where the different pedophiles would bring literally children and they would abuse children in the garage. So they had given me too much meds. They drugged me, okay, as a child. And I remember there was another little boy who was also laying on this dirty mattress in this ugly garage, and he began foaming at the mouth, and I remembered that because I knew that I had been given the same thing.
Wow.
So I'm sure the same thing happened to me because I saw them carry him away. Okay.
Mm.
And then my first out of body experience was that because they OD'd me, I left my body, and I found myself in the corner of the room in the garage looking down at my body. Okay. And I wasn't in it, I was out of my body. But here's the thing, that was my first experience with heavenly beings because
Mhm.
I was not alone. Okay. I found myself surrounded by beings of light, one of them, which I knew exactly who he was. And that was my grandfather, who I knew in this life, who had died 2 years prior to this
Wow.
incident. Okay. So my grandfather held me while I watched the pedophiles try and revive me. They put me in a bathtub, and they used it was basically a gigantic ice chest, and they
Mhm.
put me in it to wake me up, to revive me because they had OD'd me. So my first out of body NDE happened as a child. I'll never forget
Wow.
that experience because it made me different from that day forward. Because once you access the other side, you're constantly connected to it. So
Right.
I did develop some pretty interesting skill sets from that experience as a child, but I didn't really exercise any of those skill sets because I was taught that those skills were evil and of the devil. All right.
Mm.
So being psychic, having things like that, understanding how dead people work, yeah, that's something that the church was like, no, that's Satanism, and you can't even talk about that. So
Right.
so when I drowned in the pool, I woke up at the bottom of the pool and I saw the moon that was above the water, and I saw the top of the water was rippling, and I'm like, where am I? And what was weird was I was not panicked. Okay. I was not panicked. I just woke up at the bottom of the pool. And I'm like, okay, where am I? This, like, okay, I'm in, I got water in my lungs. I've drowned. I got to get out of this pool. So then I tried to get my body to move. It wouldn't move. It was like I was in it, but it wasn't paying attention to what my nervous system was telling it to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I then started to panic because now I realize that I'm at the bottom of my pool and I have no oxygen in my lungs. And if I don't get out of this water, I'm dead. So I started praying. Okay. I started praying. And at that time, I would tell you I was an atheist. Okay.
Mm.
But I was raised Mormon. So I'm like, okay, well, I got nothing better to do. I'm going to pray to something. Or what? Well,
Right, right.
that's something listened. Okay. That something listened. And that something said to me, Thayne, raise your head. Okay. So I went like this. Okay. And when I went like that, there was a pocket of oxygen that had been caught in my throat. Okay.
Wow.
About 7 years prior, I had really severe thyroid cancer. So
Okay.
I had an infected thyroid that was enlarged, a golf ball size, and a large marble sized tumor that were in my neck. So when they removed the thyroid and all the tumors, it left a pocket in my throat, like
Mm.
down in here. Okay.
Wow.
And if I inhale too quickly, the oxygen will separate. It'll go into my lungs and it'll also go into this void that's in my body from where they removed that stuff. So when I went like this, there was an oxygen bubble that was caught in that pocket. So when I went like this, the bubble went into my lungs. So suddenly I knew I had oxygen, and that gave me the energy to then start, like, I didn't like violently come to the surface. It was like I just like literally I like wiggled and I just kept praying. I know I can get here, and I just kept moving my body because my arms wouldn't work. Okay, wasn't
Right.
I couldn't swim. So I surfaced, and I was able to cough and get oxygen out. And then I made my way to an edge of the pool. I didn't have any strength to get out, but we have like a little shallow area where my grandkids play. And I laid there for a good hour and a half and watched, and I was fascinated with the stars and the moon and the planets. And I knew I had been to the same place that I had been when I was a little kid. I knew it.
Wow.
I knew it. I knew it. But what I didn't know was I did not have an immediate recall of where I was when I went there. I didn't
Okay.
have that. But I knew I had been there. I knew
Mm-hmm.
it because it's a feeling. It's a feeling. And my fascination with the cosmos, that was the other big thing, right? So after that event, um, I was different. I went into the pool as a multiple. I came out of the pool with one personality.
Wow.
And and I struggled because you got to remember my personalities were not co-conscious, so I'd never seen them.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm on the outside of the pool and I'm inside of my brain and I'm somebody, and there's other people in my brain. And I can now see these other people, but interestingly, I see all their memories. I see everything about them, but they're not there anymore. So imagine looking inside your own mind, seeing a memory that belonged to a guy named Rayton, who was a gay man, okay? And then trying to put it back together in a life. It was extremely challenging at that time. And I honestly didn't know who I was, did not know who I was at all. And very difficult for my family, because I was, for about a week, I was acting very, very weird. And what I mean by that is I was fascinated with science, cosmos. um, I would turn on the water in the sink and stand there for 15 minutes watching the water go down the sink. And then I would throw something in it and I would watch what path it went to go in it. And then I would cook eggs and I could literally cook eggs in a pan, put it behind me, flip the eggs, not break any of them, land it in the pad, put it on the grill, blindfolded.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
Wow.
And my kids and my wife are watching all of this and they're like, what is wrong with dad? Like literally. So I ended up in a hospital because I was broken. Like nothing
Hmm.
was working. So in the hospital for a week, recovering physically, mentally. Um, it was an interesting experience, I'll say that, because I started remembering what had happened in that pool,
Mm.
right? I started remembering that I went someplace. So I've spent the last 2.5 years so it was August of 2023, August 13th was when I drowned. So I've spent that time unpacking what was put into my brain. So I know that's extremely strange to say to people, but I got a download. When I came out of the pool, I had a bank of knowledge from my near-death experience that was put in my brain. And that's where this fascination about science and everything else came from.
Right.
And so here's the thing. I learned how to heal myself. Okay.
Before we get into that, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
I
this
wanted to
is
share
your
something
podcast.
because as you were talking about your story, I'm thinking about how symbolic everything that took place. Here you are with this man, this one body, this one person with multiple personalities, all this trauma, all this experience. I
Yep,
mean, medicated with multiple,
yep,
forms of drugs,
yep.
unable to fully think for yourself, right? You
Uh-huh.
can't even you're not consciously looking at anything. You're just going through the motions and you're just
Literally survival.
programmed, just
Yeah,
survival, right? And
survival.
then you go to this moment and it's just like you what I'm seeing, and I get the chills thinking about it, as you are submerging into the water. Water is very symbolic. You are removing everything that
Yes,
man, the trauma, the
yes,
medication, the personalities, everything that took place in your life. And it's like you had to visit the other realm, this spiritual world, to kind of come back to the original creation that
that
was
is
set for
correct.
you so that you can come back and remember, okay, and then nothing was there. There was just you,
Yeah,
silence,
yeah,
peace.
yeah, yeah. And then I could look in my head and I suddenly saw all of my altars that I didn't even know existed. Right? So I literally have spent the last 2.5 years reassembling my life and my
Yeah.
memories, right? So, I to this day, I'm still recovering memories. I'll probably be doing it the rest of my life, and it's embarrassing sometimes. Like I go on my phone, and that's the other thing. Like if you went in my phone, you would see multiple people in my phone. Like
Mm-hmm.
you would see, because I had multiple phone numbers. Like I had a lot of those soft phones, text phones, and every altar had their own phone. So sometimes you could kind of see that there was something because it wouldn't make sense. There'd be a disconnect in text messages, things
Right,
like that.
right.
Like there
Mm-hmm.
was weird things in my life that I didn't understand, but I'd never been diagnosed because I was high functioning,
Right.
right? That was the big part of it because I was very high functioning. So getting the NDE was that wake up call from that thing up above that said, your life has been hell, but I'm going to give you some grace today. And today you're going to get healed. Okay.
Right.
So I know that something happened to me in that water. I know that because I came out of the water different. I did. I
Mm-hmm.
know that. Right. But what came from all of that was an understanding of how we can all heal ourselves.
Right.
Okay. So, one of the things that became very important to me was this understanding of how our world is balanced. Okay. And it started with an understanding of, well, wait, how does our creator keep everything in balance? Because everything is in perfect balance. Those stars are sitting up there. Those planets are over there rotating around this sun. How did this
Exactly.
happen? How does it stay like this? So I became fascinated with math. Math. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a mathematician. I have a degree in finance and real estate. Okay. But I became obsessed with math. And it made me realize that the language of the creator is math.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because math is what gets you to the sun. Math is what used to calculate gravity. I mean, we use math to design everything. The
Mm-hmm.
language of the universe is math. All right. So this is what God showed me. God showed me that he keeps everything in perfect balance with math. So what if we took math and applied it to human emotional energy and our lives? What would that look like? Because this is just physical matter being balanced through math. I'm a human being, physical matter with emotion, physical matter. Therefore, mathematical properties in physics should apply to my life. And not only that, but my human emotions. That was the hypothesis that I began my research work on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started calling what I call the equation, and it's called the equation of life and abundant happiness. We call it Ella for short. Okay. And I knew add, subtract, multiply, divide. And it kind of goes like this. You add those things in your life that bring forth goodness and joy. You subtract and let go of those things that don't serve you, that don't bring you goodness and joy. And the expectation from our creator is we maintain balance. Okay. Now, and I don't mean balance like this, I mean balance like this 360 degrees, perfect balance at all time. That is what
Mm-hmm.
God expects of us through addition and subtraction. All right. We learned that in grade school, right? Add, subtract. Then the next thing we learned was what? Multiplication. Okay. What is multiplication, the equation of life and abundant happiness? It's when you take your action and your intention and you tell the creator upstairs what your plan is and you let go of the outcome. Don't tell God what to do because if you do, you're not going to get it. Okay.
Right.
Tell God what you want, let go of the outcome and say, God, give me what I need, not what I want. Okay. And then let that creator do its magic while you're doing your magic with your intention and your effort. Okay. It takes, so let's use the math. I had $100. I balanced it. I presented it to the creator with my action and intention. The creator made it bigger. Now I got 1,000. That's amazing. That's beautiful. All right. Well, now what do I do with the 1,000? Well, you got to keep going with the math. What comes after multiplication? Division. Because division is about sharing the expanded abundance that our creator and me and all of us created. So division is about returning the expanded goodness back into the system. But the problem is
Mm-hmm.
we don't do that. Okay. So God taught me something called the principle of abundance. And the principle of abundance goes to your heart. And what I mean by that is we all have a number that we need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. God understands that we need something called safety. So he's cool with a little bit of safety. What God is not cool with is excess. Okay. Because if you hold on to the excess, you're starving the system.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put the excess back. So abundance is always a value that comes from the heart. So out of that $1,000, I need 600 to pay my bills and another 150 to be safe. That leaves me $250 of excess goodness. So what does God want me to do with that? Give it away. Put it back into the system. Donate it. Give it to a family member who needs that money. You don't need it. You're safe.
Right.
Because if you believe that your creator will provide, then you don't have anything to fear. Give the money away. Okay. So add, subtract, multiply, divide. That's amazing. That's where I got. And then one day I woke up and I took a picture of a morning sunrise and it blew me away. It was so beautiful. I posted on social media and I said, what are you thankful for? And had all these people tell me how beautiful it was to see positive social media. And
Mm-hmm.
then they told me what they were thankful for. So the very next morning, I got up. I said to myself, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to watch these sunrises for 365 days, right? And I think I'm on day 543 now. I've never missed a sunrise. I watch every single one of them, okay? And the second thing was everybody was talking about this word gratitude. And
Right.
and and I understood gratitude, but it was normally something my grandmother would say, and I didn't like the word. You need to be grateful. it was used as punishment. So no,
It
gratitude
sure
not.
was.
Right? In our generation, it was used as punishment. Well, I shouldn't say our generation. You're much younger than me. I'm older than the hills. So, anyways, um, gratitude became something that I had to study. Okay.
Mhm.
So, like everybody else, I made a list. I tried writing a list of what I'm thankful for that lasted a day. Then I tried downloading an app, Gratitude 365. I deleted it 2 days later. It was irritating. It made me feel guilty because I wasn't being grateful. Okay. Now realize I started a podcast. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going live on Instagram because I can, and I don't know how to do a podcast and I don't have any software. So I'm going to do that. So I did. And I podcast off of Instagram, and there's 270 hour to hour and a half podcasts from the park, all on mental health. But here's the key. So I learned something about gratitude, and not gratitude like we're talking about. So I'm talking about something that's unique and new and nobody's doing it. I'm doing it and I'm telling you, and you're going to tell everybody else, and everybody's going to want to do it. Experiential gratitude. That, that is how you learn gratitude. It is experienced. It is not, you write a list. It is not
Mhm.
an app. Okay. So I went into the world one day to learn gratitude, and I had something happen to me, and I literally found myself in an ugly situation.
What'd you do?
And okay, I
You
guess all
gotta
right.
tell us. You can't
We're
just leave
going
that
vulnerable.
information
Okay,
out.
all right. Okay, so the older you get, the harder it is to hold on when you got to take a leak. Let's just be real. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I had some coffee. I was driving an hour and a half, an hour and 15 minutes to an appointment on the west side of town. And the west side, the bathrooms are usually locked because it's a rougher part of town.
Mhm.
So I could not find a place to use the bathroom. I went to a gas station. No, it was out of order. Went to a Circle K. It's available, but not to the public. This
Mhm.
literally, I'm about to wet my pants. But so I get on the west side. I see a Carl's Jr. I pull up to the side. I know they're open. They serve breakfast. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I grab the door. It's locked. I see a sign, and the sign says this door opens at 11. I'm like literally about to lose my bladder all over my clothing, everything. I mean, as a little boy, I would be pinching myself. As an adult, I
Right.
did not like want to look like a Chester molester, right? So I see a woman in the front, and she points me to the front door. So I run to the front door, and as I'm walking in, she's the only person in the restaurant, only person at the register, and I'm about literally to wet my pants, and she gives me the code to the bathroom, but I didn't know what that was until I got back there and realized I needed to know 4263. So I punch it in, go in, take care of business. And you know how you feel after you take care of business? You feel good. Okay. So I definitely had some dopamine in me for sure. Okay.
Right.
So I was feeling pretty good, but there was something more. Okay. And I know that God set me up in this situation. I know that. So I walked up to the woman at the desk, and she had a name tag on. Her name was Carla. And I said, Carla, I said, look, I know you don't know me and I don't know you, but I need to thank you right now from the bottom of my heart, because I know that you think that you sit there behind that register and you sell burgers, and what you do doesn't matter. But I want you to know that what you did today does matter, and you made a significant difference in my life today. Now, at this point, she's looking at me like, what are you talking about? Okay. Like, what?
Like I just
And
gave you a code.
yeah, 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 exactly. That's exactly what she's saying. So then I said to her, I got vulnerable with her. And I said, when I was a little boy, I was abused by people, ugly people. And if I wet my pants, they would beat me.
Mm,
So as an adult, I needed to use the restroom. And had I wet my pants, it would have been humiliation. It would have been a horrible trigger, and I possibly could have disassociated.
mm,
But you didn't do that. You saw me walking through that door. You didn't make me go buy something from the register. You
right.
saw a man that needed help. And out of the goodness of your heart, you gave me that code. Okay. So I wanna acknowledge you and thank you because I know that you're going to be amazing in life. And I know that this fast food job is just a temporary place for you because you got a good heart. Okay. And I know that your future is bright. I also know that when you're working these jobs, money's probably tight for you. So
Mm-hmm.
I always carry $100 bill in my wallet. Okay. And I use it to wrap my credit cards. So I grab my wallet, pull out my money clip. I had this $100 bill. And I looked at her and I said, all right, here's the thing. Something tells you you might need this $100 more than I need it. So I'm going to give it to you on one condition. Okay. And she's looking at me. And I said, I want you to spend it on yourself as
Mm-hmm.
you deserve it and you're worthy of this. All right. And then I said, but secondly, my heart tells me that if somebody steps into this line that can't pay for their food, you're going to use that bill to pay for their food. And I know that. And at that point, she started crying. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me cry.
Right.
And I let go of that bill and she held it. It's like she'd never held $100 bill. And she's like, are you for real? And I'm like, I'm very much for real. And I'm also very grateful. Very, very grateful. Well, at that time, I got something. Okay. I got this thing that cascaded through my body. My body got filled with love and everything. Like I've never felt this ever, ever. Okay. And so did she. And that's why she was crying because she felt something that happened between us. And
Right.
I was a stranger and she was a stranger. Okay. So I walked away from that interaction the happiest I've ever been. Gratitude is something you experience. Okay. So I tried to replicate that feeling because it was amazing, but I couldn't. So I tried the rest of the day to get the feeling, to get this, what I call a
Mm-hmm.
gratitude cocktail. I want this cocktail. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. And then I found out why. Okay. They have to be a stranger. They have to be somebody that you don't know in a
Mm-hmm.
situation you've never been before. So I started studying neuroscience. Why did my body dump these chemicals into my brain in only that scenario? Huh, there's something there. So I started studying neuroscience. I started studying my brain. I started studying psychology. And from that, I learned a what's called a protocol. And it's a protocol that if you execute it correctly, it's going to rewire your brain. And I mean, that is what healed me. Okay. I know I came out of that pool and I know my creator healed my DID, but I still had CPTSD. I
Mm-hmm.
still had bipolar and I was still severe ADHD. But when I learned this phenomena, what happened is like when you understand how this thing works, okay, it changes who you are. It changes your brain back to who you were before you wrote all of those stories in your brain that are not true. Those are called self-limiting beliefs. We all have them. They
Right.
came from our childhood, okay? So I completely rewrote who I was and I became abundantly happy and aligned with this thing upstairs. And so then I thought, well, this is amazing. What would happen if somebody else learned this quote crazy technique? So I taught it to my brother, Logan, who was sitting there next to me doing my podcast every day. That was my social media experiment. And he came from a very ugly past, similar to mine, more severe than mine, actually. And I taught him this, and it completely healed him of worse than what I had. Okay, completely healed him of DID, PTSD, paranoid schizophrenia. He used to hear voices. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
bipolar, self-mutilator, bulimic, anorexic. That's what this guy had. Okay, I taught him this technique, and here's what's crazy: 3 days of using this technique completely healed who he is, just like it
Wow.
completely healed me. So now I've healed two people with neuroscience. Okay. Well, who's next? So I
Mm-hmm.
started family and friends. Hey, I know this is crazy. I want to teach you a little trick. It's a neuroscience hack. And if you learn how to do this, it'll change who you are. And my friends and family are like, oh, yeah, sure, right. Okay. Yeah. All right. I mean, I heard that from everybody. And then they all started having the same experience and it blew them away. And their lives completely changed. And they shed all of their self-limiting beliefs and they aligned with
Mm.
love. So I realized at that point I had something remarkable. So I began studying it professionally. And so I spent the last 2.5 years creating a company. It's Pure Love. I know that domain name was left for me by God because when I
Right.
Googled it and I said, What is this? How do I? Well, what it is, Thane, is love and it's unconditional. Okay. But here's what bothers me about the world. We're all divided by all these religions. Okay. And everybody claims to be right. Everybody, the Muslims, the Mormons, the Catholics,
Yes.
the everybody's got the right answer. Okay. That's man's quest for certitude.
Mm-hmm.
But if you analyze every religion, which by the way, I've looked at every religion, every single one of them. I did that over the last 2 years. And what you find is at the top of every religion is
It's
this
love.
thing called love. That's right. So I said to God, I'm like, okay, so what do I call my company? Okay, because it is the perfect word, isn't it? Because it can mean anything for anybody. So I
Mm-hmm.
Googled itspurelove.com. Son of a bitch, 20 years later, that domain is available? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Book, that became my website. So then I started building a website. I didn't know how to build a website, but I'm a smart guy, I'll figure it out. So I started a company. And from that time, I've now taught this to multiple people. The results are off the charts. The qualitative data is insane what I'm doing with this technique. And so now I have a staff. I have a VP of neuroscience and research, and I have a VP of culture. And what we're doing is we're taking this technique and we're partnering with a university and we're going to have it studied clinically. And my hope is that XM neuroconditioning, which is what we call it, will someday be a healing protocol that will be offered by therapists and psychologists. Okay. It's
Wow.
also going to be offered by my nonprofit. It's purelove.org. Okay.
Yes.
.org is going to be a nonprofit that offers this training to people as close to free as possible. Okay. I don't want people to have to pay to have mental health. That's my
Right.
goal. Okay. But so then I'm taking the same technology and I'm putting it into business. And I'm teaching business how to operate from love. Okay. And I have a phrase that I teach. It's called dare to be second. Okay.
Mm.
It is my motto on my company. I tell everybody if you learn that phrase and you live that, you will have a perfect life. And that's true, right? So why dare? Because it takes courage to live in gratitude. When you live in
Yes.
gratitude, that means that you're always looking where you can serve others and help people. So does that mean you're not first place? No. It means that you come from second, but what you will find is you will be in first place because you
Mm-hmm.
got there from second. Okay. The number two is because gratitude is bidirectional. It goes between two people. I have to give it. More importantly, I need to receive it. Next
Right.
word is be. Why? Because gratitude is a state of being. When you live in gratitude, it becomes a framework for life. So that's why I use the word be. And then the last word is second. And second has two meanings. One of them is the precious moment of the here and now, which is where God lives. And it's also a reminder of the most powerful position in the world, which is second, right? So I like to share this right here because this is where it makes sense. A lot of people have challenged me on that second place is the most powerful. And I understand that because we live in a first place hustle culture.
Right.
Understand the math of the equation. We have a creator upstairs. The creator is in second place. The creator puts us in first place. Okay. So on the left side of the equal sign of life, God puts us first and God is second. Okay. On the opposite side of the equal sign, when we balance the equation, we flip it, don't we? That's what we do in math. So we flip it. So what does that mean that I have to do? I have to put God first and
Right.
myself second. And when I do that, it cancels. And what do you get? perfect balance. Perfect
Mm,
balance. Okay. So life is about balance. That is what God expects of us. And we balance our lives with gratitude. It's the most important word next to love. Okay. Because
love it.
gratitude is the spark and the fuel for love. Truth.
Right.
Okay. If I saw you walking down the street and I thought, oh, there's a beautiful woman, I would love to give her a hug. I can tell she's good energy. And I walked up to you and I said that, you'd be like, ah, no, I don't know you. That's a little creepy. All right. But if I walked up to you and I said, you know what? First off, I want to tell you how grateful I am that I got to see you today. And now
You got to
here's
see
why.
this beauty.
That's
I'm just kidding.
exactly right. No, you're not joking.
I'm
You're
just
not
kidding.
joking. I'm not joking. What I see is a woman with a beautiful smile and a beautiful heart. So I'd walk up to you and I'd say, you know what? My name is Thayne Martin, and I know you don't know me, but I gotta say, you've got one of the best smiles in the business, and I can see from within you that you have a big heart. I know you got a big heart. I also know life is challenging. My life is challenging, and it's difficult to show up in the world, but I can see the way that you're dressed, you care and you matter and you know that. So I want to thank you from my heart to yours for showing up in this difficult world with that big old smile and putting the love that you do in that world. And if it's okay with you, do you mind if we hug? Would you give me a hug after I just said that?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you would, right? Because gratitude creates respect,
Right.
doesn't it? Could we not heal our country, which is the
Mm-hmm.
furthest divided we've ever been? I'm
Definitely.
telling you right now, the most important thing that we can do in our very messed up country is lean into gratitude because that is what creates respect.
Right.
It creates respect. It is the opening door for love because
I
love
believe.
cannot always enter in. It can with gratitude. So my life's work is now about neuroscience and teaching people this crazy neuroscience technique, which will be clinically studied and then put out in peer-reviewed journals. And where did it all come from? A man who lived a very, very crazy, ugly life, who died in a swimming pool, who had a creator that said my life mattered and gave
Right.
me something, knowing that I had the skills and the faith to follow it through. So 2.5 years I've lived without a paycheck, living out of my savings account, watching my retirement go to zero. Why? Because I believe in what I'm doing. And nothing makes me happier than watching somebody heal. And the thing is, I don't heal them, they heal themselves. I just teach them how to do it. So
Yes.
that's me. That's my story. That's what I'm
So
about.
good. So good, Thane.
Yeah,
And it's crazy. And I love everything that you stand for and everything that you've mentioned because even when it comes down to what you mentioned earlier about the different religions and everyone feeling like they have the answer, like they have all the answers, but they're just a piece of the puzzle. They're a
that's
piece
right.
of the answer. And
That's
what
right.
we're all striving for and looking for is love. The one
Yes.
thing that we have within us,
Yes. Yes.
that love factor
Yes.
that we don't really need anyone outside to give to us because we already have it. And once
That's
we
right.
realize that we have it, we can give it freely and then people
Right.
can see, wow, like this
Right.
person is full of love. I've done nothing to them, nothing for them, but
Right.
they love me. And it
Right.
seems genuine. It seems
Yep.
real. And
Yep.
then they begin to question, wow, well, if this person's so full of love, then what am I missing? And then they start to seek something within them and they're like, I want that love too.
Yep. That's exactly
Ah,
right.
but
It's
God,
infectious, right?
it
So
is.
it's like I love to the thing I love about gratitude is it ripples, right? And
Yes.
I tell people that because when you understand that, I even said to Carla, I forgot to tell you this, when I was it's a technique that I teach called rippling. And the reason you ripple is because people often don't know how what they do shows up in other people's lives. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I teach this protocol to people, I teach them to ripple the gratitude because what they're doing ripples into your life. All right. So, for example, you decide on the way home, I don't have time to make dinner for the husband and kids. So I'm going to swing into this fast food joint and pick up some food. So at that fast food joint are a bunch of people who are busting their ass, making minimum wage to put food on your table. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you thanked these people for showing up and making your food? You don't. You give them your money, you go on your way. All right.
Right.
But what if you said to that person at the window, which I do every time I go to fast food, by the way, is, hey, I just want to thank you first off for showing up to work today. Because I know fast food is not fun. And I know a lot of people this window are not kind to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to thank you for coming into work today. Because when you came into work, I knew that coming to this restaurant that my food was going to be clean because you got health standards. I know what it's going to taste like, but none of it happens unless a person like you gets out and comes to work.
Right.
So I want to thank you for giving me time. Okay. And that time is I don't have to spend an hour cooking and cleaning up the dishes. I get an hour extra in my evening because of you and your team. Well, with that hour, I'm going to be spending it with my six little grandsons, and we're going to play in the pool and we're going to make memories. Well, none of that
Right.
would happen if you hadn't made my dinner. So thank
So
you for
true.
rippling your goodness into my life and allowing me to spend more time with my grandsons. Now, what
Right.
does it do for my grandsons? It ripples in their life too because they got quality time with their grandpa. Does that
Mm-hmm.
show up in the rest of their life? Yeah. So you see how that one action of gratitude actually rippled to two people? Because the truth of the matter is, it doesn't stop.
Right.
Gratitude ripples forever. It ripples for forever. Never stops.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This has been so good, Thane. Thank you so much for blessing our listeners
My
with your
pleasure.
story, with your understanding, with your experience. And I
Thank you.
know for a fact that I'm going to see you on Gaia TV
Oh, ooh, I love where you're thinking.
because I already
Yeah,
seen it. I'm like, he needs to be on Gaia TV. And
yeah. I
so I
love
am glad that
Gaia.
I've had you on my podcast first. I
Thank
mean, I'm sure
you.
you've been on other podcasts, but I know.
Actually, you're like the first non-NDE podcast that I've done. Everybody loves me on the NDE podcast, but there was something about your demeanor, and I know, God always directs me to people, always. Okay, because you learn with this I call it technology. You live
Hmm.
from your heart. Okay, I don't use my brain anymore. I got light in my heart. Okay, the same light that I came from. So when you live from your light and you protect your light, life becomes easy, right? And
Right.
and and light attracts light. So when I
Hmm.
was looking at, where do I want to be? I saw your thing and I'm like, oh, she looks lovely. I love her smile. She has a good demeanor. I like the feelings I'm getting from just what she posted. So that's why I reached out. I'm like, I don't know if I fit, but I'm going to try. So thank
Yes.
you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to share. Thank you for your effort and time it takes to put a podcast together. Nobody pays you for this stuff.
Mm.
Nobody.
Not
But you
yet.
do
Not
it.
yet. Wait, hold on. Not yet.
I hear you, sister, and it's coming. I know exactly what you're talking about. Trust me, I've been living for 2.5 years with no income. No income. And I'm
But we're
about
grateful.
out.
But we're grateful.
Oh, honey, you have no idea what grateful. Of course I'm grateful. I live in gratitude, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to create like a superhero called Captain Gratitude, but there, wait, where's my superhero glasses? Let me put them on.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. I love it. I love it, Thane. Thank you so much. So tell our
Thank
listeners
you.
again how they can find you. It's purelove.com. What else? Do you have
Yeah.
a book? Do you have
Yes. So, yeah, the best thing to do, follow me at ispurelove.com. I'm also on Instagram at Thayne, Thayne, last name Martin. If you go to my main page, you're going to see the information. I teach a course. I don't write books. People don't read books, okay? I'm telling you, you learn this experientially. So,
Mm,
I teach a course. I work on a donation basis, okay? Why do I work on a donation basis? Because I'm not in this to make money. Okay. But this is what I will tell you. When you work, it takes skin in the game. Free does not work. This is
mm-hmm.
shadow work. This is difficult. So you got to have skin in the game because I'm going to ask you to do some things in these experiences that you're going to push back on. But if
Right.
you've got some money in the game, you're not going to quit because you worked hard for it. So
Right.
yeah, it's purelove.com. I have transformation courses, people, businesses, and I work on a donation basis.
Awesome. I might have to check into that myself because I love it and I definitely want to learn more.
Yeah,
So
please
here you
do.
have it, guys. Thane Martin. Follow his podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
So it's on YouTube. It's IPL Gratitude 365. IPL Gratitude 365. And if you go to my website, all the links are there. Okay. I'm
Okay.
actually going to be starting a new podcast next year. In the next couple of months, I had to put it on I have so much going. I don't have time to podcast right now, but I'm going to go
Okay.
back to it because I miss it.
Okay. Awesome.
Definitely.
Follow him, learn more about gratitude. And I always say in my intros, and I, often challenge our listeners to practice gratitude because there's no way that you can be mad when you're
Yeah.
practicing gratitude. And I also
Yeah.
say there's no way you can be mad while you're dancing. So
Yes.
how about you
Yes.
combine both of those things?
Yes. I love that. Thank you so much for your energy and interviewing me, your great questions, and the goodness that you represent in the world. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
My
Until
pleasure.
next time, I'm your coach and your host of the All Things Good podcast. I'll talk to you later.